In the last video, we got the Tahoe running very unexpectedly. In this video, let's throw a battery in, let's check it over, let's get it ready for safety. We gotta get this thing on the road ASAP. Crown on your battery terminals. You see the swollen nut? That's when I had to hammer on. That's pretty common with these plated nuts. They always happen when you live in the Rust Belt or in the north. Quick glance at the brake rotors. There's no rust slippage whatsoever on these. They look like they're not that old. We'll take it apart. We're going to clean everything up. We're going to do a brake service, but I think the front brakes are going to pass. Slide pins are seized. That one is anyway. Surprise? Not really. Or slide pin bolts, sorry. Big screwdriver with the caliper into the slots in the brake rotor. Always works for pushing the pistons back. You just don't want to push on your pads. Oh. That outer pad is almost brand new. Inner pad's basically brand new, so that's a good sign. We'll clean out the dust groove. I'll do that with a hacksaw. I use a hacksaw and just cut in there. It cuts all the stuff right out. As you can see, there's zero lube on it. There's rust behind the actual anti-squeal pad. So this all just needs to be cleaned up and re-greased. I think our rotor's good. I don't have the tools to measure it, so I just go based on rust lip. I'll just sand down a bit of the rust off the surface. It doesn't chew the pads. I always take a file to the mounting locations so that you're not mounting on rust, you're mounting on a solid machine surface. There's probably a tool for cleaning the rust off, but this is what I do. And I always smear a little bit of caliper grease just to kind of help stop future rust. Now we're on to the actual hold down plate or caliper, whatever. I can't remember what it's called right now. I take a file again and just clean these out, all the surfaces where these anti-squeal clips sit, just so that the rust is not basically jacking and tightening up the brake pads. You can see it's shined up. I'm not trying to remove material, I'm just trying to remove rust. Also, where your actual mounting bolts go, again, clean those up, just like that. Cleaned up and ready to go back into service. Slide bins. Actually, these are loaded right full of grease. So I'm not even going to touch them. So I'm using the orange brake grease. I like the purple better, but I can't seem to buy it anymore. The blue sucks. I'm not sure I like this orange stuff either, but... So anywhere those anti-squeal pads sit is getting greased. Of course, I'm trying to show you guys, and I get dirt and bugs because I'm not paying attention. So these anti-rattle clips are stainless, and these ones are in really good shape. Again, because they're basically brand new. They do rust out over time, but I'm just cleaning basically any extra corrosion off with my fingers, and there really isn't any. So these just snap back in the way they came out. I can do this. There we go. And then I like to put some grease on right here. I don't know if it's completely necessary, but where the pads are going to sit, because the pads ride on this area right here, I like to grease it. I'm a big fan of greasing, to an extent. It also tends to prevent rust if you got grease in there instead of water. They're all back in, they're all greased up. So now we're back to our brake rotor that's got the rust built up in the center in the basically dust evacuator. So what I do is I take a hacksaw. You don't want to cut through the brake lining, but as you can see, it goes down part way. Get it up there. There's these grooves in there, so all I'm doing is using the hacksaw to clean the groove back out. The hacksaw works great for cleaning rust and brake dust out of here, which is what builds up in here. It's just rust off your brake rotors and dust off your brake pads. Works much better than a screwdriver. It's also hard to do and show the camera. And just like that, slot is all cleaned out. It's that simple. And then now we've got where the pads ride. We're going to again take a file, get rid of all the rust. Just like that, it's cleaned up. The rust is gone. There is paint on it still, because they're relatively brand new. These are all painted. Do the other side. And then I like to take and just smear a bit of grease on here. We're not trying to get too much. Again, you don't want much. You just want a layer to stop future rust. And I'm already probably putting too much on. Then the pads are different. That's the inside. That's the outside. There is a size difference. This one's got the stamping from the pistons on the caliper, so it's pretty easy to tell. This whole assembly is likely going to fall apart when I go to put it on the truck, because the pads usually tend to fall out of the holders. And that is one caliper bracket rebuilt, essentially, or serviced. I'm going to go clean the rotor up off camera. And just like that, we've got rid of all the rust. I like to do this because otherwise the rust is really aggressive and it will chew your brake pads to pieces. This helps improve their lifespan. This is an oil filter wrench. It also works good for squeezing pistons, as long as they're not ceramic. That one moves nicely. That one moves nicely. Okay, so the pistons are not seized up. Okay. Don't do that ever. You can strip your lug nuts or strip your studs out. And then that corroded one, I'm just going to take a file and knock this off, because as you can see, I hammered socket only on that far. So it's junk. Oh, something's loose there. Oh, something's loose there. This side needs a wheel bearing. You see me tear the other side apart. I pretty much showed you what was going on. So I'll just go through this side. I'll clean it up. I'll re-grease everything. If I find anything, I'll turn the camera back on and I'll show you. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. You don't want to watch it 7 times. Well, since we found out we got a bad wheel bearing, I ran into town. I grabbed one. We might as well change it right now instead of doing it later. I'm going to throw the tire back on just to hold it while I crack the axle nut loose, because I got no other way of really holding it. I got no way to hold the brakes, so no sense putting the brakes back together. Let's use the vehicle's weight. We got 3 15mm bolts around the circumference of the bearing. Four little pinch clips to hold the ABS sensor on. Now we just buzz out all the 3 nuts on the back and we crack loose. 3. Any luck? The wheel bearing just comes off because this one's newer. There we go. And again, cleaning up the mating surface. I'm using a file. If you have a power sander, Scotch-Brite, anything, get rid of the rust. So your wheel bearing seats. Anti-seize, everything. Install our last 3 bolts. Electronics, crown. What's the wrong connector? It looks like I'm going back to town again. The ABS connector is the incorrect one. Well, and just like that, I'm back with a new one. Turns out me and the parts guy were joking about something the day I picked it up, so he actually looked up for the wrong vehicle. Once we looked up for the right one, we got the right bearing. It was just the wrong years, that was the main problem. The same vehicle, just different years, and apparently they are more or less identical other than the ABS plug. Who all caught that I put the backing plate on backwards? I don't find this out until I go to put the rotor on, and it doesn't fit. And now we're going to torque to 133 foot-pounds. That's for the bolts that hold the hub assembly to the knuckle. I just looked at the caliper, and if you can see the liquid in there. Okay, we got a leaky caliper. Looks like we're doing front calipers. I didn't notice them leaking yesterday. Maybe with me moving them back and forth to test the pistons because it'd been sitting. Maybe there was some rust that ate the square cut O-ring inside. I don't know, but looks like I'm going to be replacing front calipers. Pump it up. Don't go all the way to the floor. Pretty much. Okay, let's pump it up again. There's still air on that side. Pump it up.
Okay.
Pump it up.
Hey, this is a good stereo system.
Okay.
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 I'm excited. You don't even know how. Like, I can't wait for something that has keys. I really can't wait for something that actually has a key. Because I keep misplacing the little fob. And you can't hang anything to it because when it doesn't work, you have to reach over, open the glove box, and stick it in. Because, you can't make that easily accessible. I'm so excited. What? Yeah, you're recording me. Get out of here.
Let's put tires on. So we have to still torque the spindle nut on the passenger side, 177 foot-pounds. Our final process is we are just going to torque the front tires because they shouldn't be coming back off anymore. 140 foot-pounds for these style of GMs. If you get these GM nuts where the capping lights come off, 13/16 seems to fit well on the standard steel nut that's underneath. Now that the fronts are all done, we can move on to the backs. I have, I think, all the components for the backs. I checked them over before I went to town last time, so I believe, everything we need. We got to take the two 13mm bolts that hold the caliper to the bracket off first so we can get a wrench in there to get the caliper bracket off. Those pads are done. That one's even worse. And now we got the two main 18mm bolts that hold the caliper bracket to the actual axle. Has to come off so we can get the rotor off. We also have to do parking brake shoes behind this. That rotor sees itself on. This is the one I took off when I went into town last time just to check if I needed parking brake shoes. That's one of the parking brake shoes that's actually stuck to the actual hat of the rotor. That's just the band where the parking brake shoes go onto. The shoes are actually long gone. There's two 5/16mm bolts I'm going to have to get out, I think, first, because they seem to be holding it down. Or 8mm, I guess. Since we live in Canada, rust and bolts generally means things like to snap off. So let's give them some heat first. Tiny little bolts like this generally always snap off, so let's not take the chance, because then we have to pull the axle out to get the backing plate off to extract the bolt. It's moving. I don't want to snap it off. I can feel crappy threads. So we're going to go forward and backwards a few times, because you can't get any lube on the back of it. There's our little bolt. It looks like there was blue Loctite on the back of it too, so it is a good thing I put some heat on it. It doesn't give you much space to work. And my ratchet sucks. 2 little bolts in Canada. That's an accomplishment. GM did not make this thing nice to work on. Come on. There we go. We just gotta get what's left of the star wheel down there, which comes with new pieces for both sides, and that looks horribly seized in. We're gonna go right to vice grips on the parking brake adjuster and see what happens. We're probably gonna need heat. It's likely seized up and it doesn't come out. It's part of this big, huge bracket. There we go. Ow, hot. The adjuster nut is still seized. There. So that threads down into there. So as you turn this, basically it just shoves the nut forward and backwards. This is our new versus our old. The kits come with basically everything new. Presuming you get the hardware kits. Which in Canada, you always need the hardware kits for everything. Every time you do anything brake related, if there's a hardware kit, you need it. And again, we're going to put lots of brake grease on everything so it hopefully doesn't seize up over the years. Grease our pivot points or hold down points. As you would expect, there's a massive difference between the old versus the new. The new one actually has shoes on it. The old one is really, really bad, missing all the shoes. Whoever invented this system should be out of a job. It is simpler than the old system that they used to use back in the early 2000s with all the springs and stuff, but getting over the hub is a real nightmare. That parking brake system likely works better on an assembly line, not in the field, because that would go on before you put the axles in. So it'd be a lot easier to do then versus trying to do it while it's on a vehicle. It does work, it is doable, but it's just not the most friendly designed. It probably is easier to do than those spring ones, because they were not fun to do either, but none of this drum and hat stuff's very nice to do. But what do you do for a parking brake? The calipers with the built-in parking brake are also generally a nightmare or a disaster to deal with. They have a lot of problems like the European stuff, I find, like the Volkswagens. So I do prefer the setup over those other ones. None of the parking brake stuff is good when it comes to disc brakes. That's just how it is. Do not use brake cleaner. Interesting. And since we're going with new calipers, we can just open up one side, load the anti-rattle clips in, and load the new pads in, put it together as one piece. Then this nut will get torqued down when we get the caliper back on and can actually hold it down in the vehicle. The very last thing we need to do is get the hydraulic line off the old caliper and put on the new caliper. If I had broke the nut loose earlier before I took it off, it would have made it a lot easier, but you can still do it on the vehicle. Don't forget to take your old copper washers off if they stick. New banjo bolts with 2 copper washers. You don't want to snap these off. That's basically rear brakes all done. I'm going to open the bleeder on the back. You won't be able to see that, so I'm not even going to bother with that. I'm going to just gravity bleed it first, and then we'll pressure bleed it afterwards. I like to gravity bleed it first just to get 99% of the air out, so it doesn't aerate and get trapped in there. I will switch over to the other side, and I'll catch up with you then. And new brakes. Just let me bleed the brakes. You've seen that in the front. You don't want to see it again. Next thing we're going to move on to is the tailgate. The tailgate doesn't want to open. When the battery's on, you press there's a little switch back here, but you press the switch, the tailgate doesn't open. It doesn't unlock. So we're going to have to take it apart from the inside and see what's going on. I was expecting to have to drill, but this hole's already been drilled out. This is the release hole. So now I just take a screwdriver, and I'm going to jam a screwdriver in there, and that'll release the trunk. Let's see if this screwdriver is long enough. It's really lovely that the GM leaves you a little dimple in the plastic that you have to drill out to stick a screwdriver in to release the door if it doesn't actually open, if the lock mechanism jams up. I don't know why they couldn't have made a little access cover here like some of the other imports do, where you pop the little cover out, you can reach in there, you can do it. Instead of having to now, you got a hole drilled in your thingy, and it kind of looks trashy, I think. But it's the only way to get these trunks released. The other good news is we don't have the power lift tailgate. I was kind of afraid this thing might have that, and that's just one more thing to go wrong. I hate power lift tailgates. There's too many sensors, too many electronics. Sure, they work great when they work. That doesn't last very long, especially not in Canada. So the fact that we don't have it is good. Why couldn't they just put a few screws in it, put a few plugs over it, make it look nice? These little pull tabs are a real pain. I really hate these things. There we go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to unplug the wire that goes to the switch, and we're going to test the switch, which is not even really a one-person job. Okay, that works. So the switch is working. After a lot of messing around, I have realized that both these switches for the tailgate are actually failed. They beep tested just fine, but they weren't carrying a current. This is the switch for the glass release. And then this is the switch for the actual trunk, or whatever you want to call it, the actual hatch release. This one is the one that was carrying the beep test, but it's not carrying amperage. So the hatch one's pretty easy. So that's where your license plate lights are in that stupid backup camera. The glass release one is the one that's right here. The little plug-in likes to fall up. They didn't really make it long enough. and that's how far it comes down. The actual other end of the plug-in actually gets stuck up top and won't come through the hole. Bailey, you're special ed. Special puppy. Special puppy. Hi, Tangus. Hi, Tangus. Needy. Okay, I'm gonna put switch in. Oh, the glass works. Look at that. The next one is the trunk release switch that's right here, which is this one. We have to pull this whole handle off from the inside. So just to test the switch from the inside here, we should just be able to plug it in to the harness, and then I should be able to press the button. Oh, you gotta lift and press. Now we know that that switch has failed. So to get that switch off, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, deep 10 mils, and that'll take that handle off. Now we're just going to push this tab through. There's our weather seal right here. And we close the door, the handle should come out. I'm just going to insert a pry bar through the latch handle so the door won't fully close. It won't hurt anything, it's just going to touch up against the latch, so it won't hurt anything, but it won't close that way on us. And now we've got the 4 screws on both sides of the handles. They're just Torx. So they're a T20. New switch. Basically just sits there until we get this piece in. Okay, so there's a recess in the back of there. And we don't want to break them off, they're only into plastic, so just snug. And now we're just going to crown the plug, because we did have everything electrical. I'm going to crown the inside of the tailgate a little bit, because this is probably the last time you'll ever get any sorts of anti-rust into there. Now we're going to close the tailgate and make sure it functions as normal. Well, it works just as it should. I'll put the plastic back on, save you the boring part of doing that. You really don't care about that. Well, I think we are ready to finally take it in for the safety. I fixed a few little wiring connections, a few little lights, just stupid stuff that nobody really cares about. You're going to have to watch the next video to see the install of that.